Experiencing the richness of relationships balances on the edge of security and desire. I imagine a world where we experience a sense of aliveness and vitality in our relationships. The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. Esther Perel. Successful relationships require a specific form of intelligence. Desire and love and security are all conceptual and reside within our mind. Unlocking the potential to experience a satisfying partnership begins with how we think. I am a huge fan of relationship expert Esther Perel's work. She is a practicing psychologist, speaker and author. But she rarely talks about her own life. Of course, she has a fascinating life story. I saw her interviewed on a talk show where she was asked why she became interested in studying relationships. Her answer piqued my curiosity even more. Both of her parents were Holocaust survivors who met upon liberation from the camps. Both were sole survivors from their families. Within this miserable circumstance, her parents fell in love. She wondered how, in such a terrible conditions, how you could possibly fall in love. Perel grew up in Antwerp, Belgium, in a community made up exclusively of Holocaust survivors. In her estimation, the people living there fell into two categories: those who didn't die and those who came back to life. Those who did not die lived tethered to the ground. The world was a dangerous place, you could not trust, and certainly you could not enjoy or experience pleasure. Because if you did, it meant you were not on guard and shit could happen. Those who came back to life are those who understood the erotic. Eroticism as a life force, not just its modern, narrow definition of sex. But how do you reimagine yourself? How do you reinvent yourself? How do you bring back an energy, a vitality, and aliveness? Much of what I do is try to reconnect people with their aliveness. Aliveness goes with meaning, it goes with purpose, it goes with creativity, it goes with playfulness, it goes with connection. Esther Perel. Perel grew up in the shadow of one of the worst atrocities in human history. And as a result of observing people in the worst possible circumstance, she became curious. What she found was that circumstance didn't matter. Instead, the vitality and aliveness experienced in life was a result of the mind. Her questions led her to a deeper understanding of the whole human being. What connects us to one another? What makes us feel alive? What is the tension that supports our curiosity about one another? How do we lose that connection? Have we replaced it with other forms of love? What does it take to feel alive? Perel invites us to reinvent ourselves. To bring a playfulness back to our lives. It is an invitation to live fully. Being an adult in no way means you need to stop acting like a teenager. We were put on this earth to have fun, to enjoy one another. To do so, we need to promote an environment of creative play. The best ideas rarely arise in one isolated mind, but rather develop in networks of curious and creative thinkers. Esther Perel. Her perspective is that of a philosopher rather than a typical self-help psychologist. She outright refuses to give to-do lists of how to fix your relationship. Instead, she examines behavior and language to reveal the innermost truths of modern relationships. Some of her most interesting ideas are rooted in the words we use and the stories we write for ourselves. Eroticism as a creative force. Perel uses the word eroticism to describe the vibrant energy of being alive. It can be applied sexually, but in other ways as well. Erotic intelligence stretches far beyond a repertoire of sexual techniques. It is an intelligence that celebrates curiosity and play, the power of the imagination, and our infinite fascination with what is hidden and mysterious. Esther Perel. The most obvious example is when children enter the picture. As women, we tend to channel all of our emotion and toward our children. When creativity in the relationship is directed away from the partnership, the relationship inevitably suffers. This only means it is time to reinvent your story. Instead of burying yourself under other forms of affection, become willing to adapt. Creativity and change is the foundation of a successful relationship. Choose your story. We live in a world that is becoming so insular. Our homes are further apart, our communities are no longer focused on Main Street, but in strip malls. We are losing our connection to one another as humans and neighbors. As we move away from a sense of community, we become more focused on our partner to provide what we need, in all aspects of life. Instead of looking for a person who checks all the boxes, focus on a person with whom you can imagine yourself writing a story with that entails edits and revisions. Esther Perel. Our need to be open to expand is more important than ever. We are living longer than any other generation. Our lives go through phases as we ideally construct new and better versions of our lives. It is only together that you can grow and change and rewrite your story. Allowing for healthy connection. Cultivating love and desire over the long term are tasks born in the ability to balance. Our need for security resides alongside our need for adventure. Becoming a couple requires revealing yourself, one layer at a time. But it balances on a knife's edge. Too much togetherness leaves no room for further discovery or mystery. Love rests on two pillars: surrender and autonomy. Our need for togetherness exists alongside our need for separateness. Esther Perel. So often, we abandon our sense of autonomy in favor of a relationship. The importance of becoming we has overpowered our sense of an individual self. Where there is no separateness, there can be no coming together. The feeling of desire disappears. A successful foundation in life requires the ability to reinvent yourself. Esther Perel proves how little circumstance matters. She was raised by survivors of the Holocaust, immersed in the experience of painful memories. But her parents directed her focus toward those people who were living life fully as examples of love. Many people die well before their time. They may remain amongst the living, but it is a hollow shell of an existence, devoid of purpose or joy. Life is a choice. Love is a choice. Happiness and fulfillment are byproducts of your decision not just to be alive, but to live. Our playful nature needs to be nurtured and our creativity cultivated. We are in a constant state of reinvention whether we know it or not. Once we realize we are writing our own story, there is only question that remains. Will you choose to come alive?